NC Impact is made possible by funding from Civic Federal Credit Union. NC Impact is a production of UNC TV Public Media North Carolina in association with the University of North Carolina School of Government.
I was working, but I was still struggling trying to feed myself.
Hunger is a growing concern for children and families across our state.
We should not have a hunger problem. We produce tons and tons of food.
How one community is working together to bring fresh and affordable food to those who need it. This is NC Impact.
Hello, I'm Anita Brown-Graham, and welcome to NC Impact. This week, we're looking at how communities are coming together to combat food insecurity. Joining us are Monique Bethel, board member with the Capital Area Food Network, Abby Piner, project lead at Community Food Strategies, and Jamie Dement, co-owner of Coon Rock Farm. Our panelists have thoughtful ideas about how the current food system gives or fails to give access to healthy and affordable food, and they want to hear your ideas and questions. North Carolina is the 10th hungriest state in the country. What does this mean? It means we rank 10th in food insecurity. Let's take a look at some of the places with the least access to healthy and affordable food and how one farmer is helping his community increase access to food.
Growing up, it didn't take Kamal Bell long to notice his neighborhood lacked access to fresh food.
Why is there one outlet to get healthy food in this area, and then another area they have an overabundance of Whole Foods, they have all these different stores they can get fresh produce.
After only a few 40-minute trips to the nearest Whole Foods, Bell says he realized he was living in what's considered a food desert. He wanted to be a part of the solution, so in 2016, Bell founded Sankofa Farms. The local farm helps provide produce to urban areas lacking access to fresh, affordable food.
And I thought about how I could make a dent and try to help curb the effects of food deserts or food insecurity. But I thought about why not go into farming.
Sydney Klein is the Food Security Program Manager for Wake County. She says one of the main reasons food deserts exist is because major grocery store chains don't want to build in an area with little opportunity for a return on their investment.
They don't know a community, and so they have preconceived notions of what a community will eat and what they deserve to eat. It comes off as.
Are we going to use the same row for both sides, or do you got another one?
And it's why Bell's goal is to not only help fill the gaps in food deserts, but empower young people to be a part of the solution by teaching them the value of food and farming.
If we truly want to maintain and create change, the most effective way to do that is to educate the youth.
Abby, let's start with you. We hear people use this term food desert when referring to communities where healthy and fresh food don't seem to be available. Can you tell us what exactly does that term mean?
Sure, you're right, Anita. Food desert is used really often in our line of work across nonprofits, philanthropy, the USDA, Department of Agriculture. And it's really become a term that just describes a community that doesn't have good quality, affordable food. The USDA describes these communities in an urban area where a community is at least 1 mile from a grocery store or supermarket, and in a rural area, 10 miles. I think it's really important to note that just having a supermarket is critical, but also, and Kamal points to this, as did Sydney in the clip, what it takes for investment long-term to really have small businesses that are owned by the people in a neighborhood, and also spaces where grocery stores want to come and invest. So food deserts are historically places that have been underinvested in for a long time in many different ways, and that is causing a systemic reality that means that often fresh and healthy foods aren't available, and that the places where folks have access to purchase food are often corner stores, convenience stores, and fast food restaurants.
So let me get Jamie to jump in here, because this sounds like a perfect handoff to her. So Jamie, help us think through, how can communities generate interest among producers to become part of the solution?
So I think that this is a really important question, but I think the community that we're referring to in this question is a bigger community. It's our global community and our national community, because one of the biggest problems is that that small farmers are being left behind, and the biggest reason for that is that the federal government is investing in these large monocrop agriculture systems that are growing, insane amounts of corn out in the Midwest, and then that corn ends up in all kinds of fast food products and packaged products that are the unhealthy things that we're talking about that are being sold in fast food restaurants and sold at that Dollar General, instead of having the government investing in small farms and small agricultural communities where all that money is funneling into a channel that's been around for the past unfortunately 50 years, and we've ended up with an agricultural system that's broken from the top down. And so it's incredibly hard for small farmers to be able to produce crops, get them to market, and have them bought and even understood in meaningful ways. Because one of the pieces of this problem is that if we're talking about people having access to good food and having the money to buy good food, at the end of the day, some of these small-scale farmers don't have the money to do that either. Yeah, they can grow their own food, and they have access to that, but can they pay for their health care, and can they meet all the financial obligations that they need to meet to keep their farm running? And it's becoming more and more impossible for small-scale farmers to do that when we're not getting help from the top down.
Well, I want to come back and talk to you some more about that, but let's just take a look at Wake County, which has been working to address food insecurity through the Capital Area Food Network. And let's see how the county is using partnerships to create a more effective local food supply chain.
Tripling our staff.
When Gideon Adams moved from the UK to the US, he immediately noticed a problem he wanted to help solve.
Now, when I came to this country and I saw poverty and I saw hunger, I just thought it was unacceptable. It shouldn't be the case in a country like America.
Adams now works at the food bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina.
It's all day, every day. It's hectic.
The nonprofit serves 1/3 of the state's food pantries with around 90 million pounds of food every year.
Doesn't seem like a whole lot, but that's a lot.
The food bank gets their food through donations from farmers, retailers, distributors, and from the public through food drives.
Large bulk amounts of food coming through the doors, and then we sort it, A, to make sure it's safe, and B, to make sure that it can be moved easily, from bulk to retail size packaging, and then send it out through our partner agencies.
The food bank is a part of the Capital Area Food Network, a community-led nonprofit made up of Wake County citizens and organizations.
12, 14.
The partners have worked together to come up with a comprehensive action plan to address food insecurity by fixing the local food system.
Even though the food system works and food gets to grocery stores, food gets to restaurants, there are too many people that are left out.
And even more people now have been left out as a result of COVID-19. The Food Bank of Eastern and Central North Carolina reports a 35% demand in food, all this while working around production disruptions as a result of the pandemic.
So we're just having to ramp up and do more and more and more. The challenge has been that the supply chain has, in some instances, collapsed.
It's required the Capital Area Food Network to further lean into their community partners to ensure children and families in poverty know where their next meal is coming from.
We need to make a difference to these people's lives so that they can be more productive and be more self-sufficient in the future.
So Monique, let's start with you. You shared with us earlier this difference between food desert, food swamps. Many places are both. Are there effective ways to incentivize grocery stores that sell healthy, affordable foods to invest in lower income communities?
Well, I think that what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are investing in strong partnerships. And this is something that CAFN has been doing very well. We need to make sure that we are not only aligning our priorities with the local food outlets and the food retailers that want to sell healthy foods, but we need to make sure that we're partnering with local government, with our state government officials to ensure that they're supporting the healthy food retailers that want to do this in smaller communities. So, for example, Representative Yvonne Hawley had, and several others provided did a bill recently in 2017 to provide financing for healthy food retail outlets. Over $1 million has been used to invest in healthy food retailers, small retailers. Those are the types of partnerships that we need. We need to make sure that coalitions such as CAFN, other food councils across the state, Orange County and Chatham County, all working together. So it's a multi-layered cross-sector approach. It's not just about making sure that we have investment in the food retail outlets, but making sure that consumers have buying power. So making sure that we have living wage. Increasing the buying power of those in those communities is going to go a long way to sustaining the progress that has been made and ensuring that we can have continued investment in healthy food retail outlets in these areas where there are food deserts.
Okay, so let me go to Jamie next, because you've raised, again, the importance of partnerships. Jamie, how does a single producer go about helping to build a sufficient network or a sufficient set of partners to overcome these challenges of food insecurity?
I think it's there's two sides to that equation. One is is finding ways as a producer to support your community and even reach out in on a donation front. Like if you're a farmer and you know that you're going to have extra sweet potatoes or more arugula or whatever that you're going to have, an excess of, you need to be able to develop relationships where you know that they can accept that product. One of the problems on the community food organization side is that many of them aren't equipped to take raw product, and they're also not equipped to take necessarily small amounts of it. So you end up with this quandary as a producer saying, well, I've got a little of this and a little of that, and then the community organization saying, well, I can only take your sweet potatoes if you'll bring me 10,000 pounds.
Okay, but that's about how you are contributing to the community. Mm-hmm. And I want to know, what kind of partnerships do you need in order to be successful in the community?
Part of that is you need help with marketing and with outreach, and our farm has been around for over 15 years, and so for us, marketing outreach, it's not that hard. We've been around. People have heard about us through word of mouth. We're in newspaper articles. Y'all invite me to come to UNC TV and talk about these things. But for farmers that are just starting out, or even smaller scale farms than we are, what you need is a group. You need organizations like Carolina Farm Stewardship Association and the Center for Environmental Farming Systems. You need organizations that can bring farmers together and help you, with marketing, with outreach, with, applying to the right farmers markets, with getting to organizations like Happy Dirt that brings, farmers together to sell, kind of collectively almost. And so, because it is hard to be that lone farmer out there trying to get your product to market and know where to get it to and how to sell it and how to price it. So the more we can do to give, especially young starting out farmers or even older farmers who are maybe, trying to change from growing tobacco to growing an organic multi-crop farm. Like, we need to help people come together so that they can, sell and get their product to market, and maybe offer them, lists of small markets that are places like Weaver Street Market or smaller, or like the Durham Co-op that are willing to take smaller amounts from farmers. Building those networks is incredibly important.
This is terrific, right? And what's so good is you get that support that you need as a farmer, and then, as you pointed out in the earlier part of your answer to my question, you then contribute back to the community, right? Yes. That's the win-win.
Yeah.
So let me stay on this idea of partnerships for a second and turn to you, Abby. We know that some schools end up providing children, unfortunately, their only healthy meal of the day. Talk to us a little bit about what the impact of COVID-19 has been on school meals and what kind of partnerships are in place to offer alternative distribution.
Yeah, this has been really significant for kids in our communities across North Carolina and the country during COVID-19. And You know, in public K-12 education, many services are funded on a per pupil basis by district, but that's not true of child nutrition services. So without kids in schools, our child nutrition services departments have significantly less funding than they usually do, and they're working under extreme crisis situations. So it's been a real situation of innovation and creativity, I would say. And schools, child nutrition services have partnered with transportation services in districts to make sure that meals can get out on school buses. So school bus routes have been used to drop meals off at kids' homes, which has been a really wonderful partnership. We've also seen some amazing partnerships across local restaurants that had access and relationships already with local farmers. And they have partnered with child nutrition services in some districts to create school meals. This is particularly true during the summer months. Create school meals with local produce from farmers purchased from those restaurants that were created into school meals that were then either picked up or delivered. And that pickup and delivery process was a collaboration with community organizations and volunteers. So it's been a really significant time of figuring out how to work together with minimized budgets and really shifting realities. We've also seen some powerful examples of even weekend meals being offered, again, with partnerships between community farms and local restaurants.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say it's a terrifying situation, and yet how heartening to hear of all of these various partnerships that are coming together to try to find creative ways to respond.
And I can also add to that to say that the Capital Area Food Network, there were many people who came together and partnered with our Food Council to make sure that children had meals where they were in their cars delivering food to various housing communities, to various areas where they knew children would be. We had a outpouring of support during the situation. And I think it's just so important that we really emphasize the importance of key partnerships and working together.
I suspect, as you know, this is a statewide program, and I suspect that there are going to be people in other areas of the state going in Wake County. This is a challenge in Wake County, but it just goes to show you the food insecurity issue is everywhere across the state. So nonprofit groups have always helped to bridge the gap in access to healthy and affordable food. NC Impact's David Hurst looks at an example of one organization with a long history of making change.
What you have here is what we call the Bread of Life Ministry.
Growing up in Southeast Raleigh, Pastor Chris Jones has seen firsthand many of the problems in his neighborhood.
We came here, it was a lot of gangs, a lot of prostitution, a lot of drugs, that kind of thing. So there was a lot of things for us to, to combat and try to come against. So we started one thing at a time, and food seemed to be the biggest thing.
He says food insecurities worsened in 2013 when a nearby Kroger shut down. The next closest grocery store was about 7 miles away.
I started noticing people walking about 7 miles, carrying groceries. And so when I saw that, I knew that there was an issue, that there was a food disparity. Sia, how you doing?
So Jones helped bring Galley Grocery to the area, a neighborhood grocery store that sells food, including fresh produce, at affordable prices.
If a man is hungry, you can't preach the gospel to him. And so, we knew people needed food. And so that was a gap we tried to fill by, opening up our store. But it was hard here.
When Darlene Whitlock moved to the neighborhood about 3 years ago, she struggled finding affordable food.
I was working, but I was still struggling trying to feed myself. I had, so it was kind of hard.
We've had some that has transitioned.
Then she learned about Galley Grocery. She says the store is as convenient as a convenience store, with the prices similar to a grocery store.
You can buy 3 cans for $1 versus 1 can for $1.
Who helped put together the business plan for this.
Jones says the grocery store is transforming lives in his community. It's an effort made possible thanks to the support of other churches across the Triangle.
So a lot of effort, a lot of people on the outside that saw the need, came around the need, and we met the need of the people in this community.
Jamie, you play a pivotal role here, so it won't be a surprise to you that I'm pitching the first question to you. As a producer of food, is the system supply chain ready to maximize the benefit of what you have to offer? And if not, what changes need to be made?
So the supply chain is, from a small producer perspective, is completely broken. The way that most markets and grocery stores and almost any food service entity is set up is to deal with these like huge conglomerate corporations that offer produce and meat in the, as hundreds of pound batches, not like, oh, I have grown some really beautiful kale this week and I have 25 bunches that I can sell. So all of the places that are customer facing are they're used to placing these insanely huge orders, and a lot of them are set orders. You know that you're going to get 150 heads of lettuce and 500 of this and 600 of that, and it's all going to come on one truck that may have come here to North Carolina, which is a state that is agriculturally wealthy. We have so much that is produced within the boundaries of this state, and we are constantly shipping in produce from California, from China, from God knows where, when what we really need to be doing is looking at the producers in North Carolina and saying, what can you give me? What do you have right now? What do you think you will have to offer next week and the next week and the next? And then we need to make our system work for the producers, not work against them.
And of course, many of us never heard the word food supply chain until recently with COVID-19, when as consumers, we recognized how when things start to go wrong, they go very wrong. Let me turn to you, Abby. How then does a grower or producer communicate with those who distribute the food to communities in need?
Yeah, I think there's several places where producers can start. There are a lot of organizations that are doing this work, connecting local producers to folks who are hungry in their communities. I think there are certainly church groups, and the NC Council of Churches even works to connect churches around the issues of health and hunger, and could certainly be a starting place. Cooperative Extension has local food coordinators in every county, and so that could certainly be a starting place as well. Feeding the Carolinas is a conglomerate of all the food banks in both North and South Carolina, and our food banks in this state are really interested in being able to offer fresh produce. And Jamie mentioned earlier, the interest of farmers, particularly local farmers who, if they have excess food, would love to get it to a place that is giving it to folks who are dealing with hunger. But I also want to name that organizations like Farmer Food Share are doing some really innovative work to also really value what Jamie points out is the value of local produce, and really finding ways to both pay farmers for the value of the food that they grow, while also understanding that that food can and needs to get to families and communities who are dealing with hunger. So coming up with creative partnerships and solutions that really honor both sides of that reality in our communities is also critical. And I think we're also really looking at our food hubs in North Carolina, which are more localized aggregators that can pull together multiple farmers' food and find markets for that, both for folks who are dealing with hunger and also other retail markets for food. So there's a lot of innovation coming out of the crisis of COVID, and things that have been happening before that we really have an opportunity to build on.
Monique, Abby, Jamie, I want to thank you for the time, the passion that you bring to this issue. As Abby said, there are so many creative innovations happening at the local level, not just in Wake County, but beyond. And yet we are all hoping that we can, to Jamie's good point, reach the other community, the big community, so that we can have some true systems change around these issues. And thank you for watching and engaging. There are solutions available out there, but only if we work together. Tell us what your community is doing or how we can help you. Email us at ncimpact@unc.edu or message us on Twitter or Facebook. And you can always join the conversation on Facebook Live. Visit the NC Impact Initiative post on Mondays at noon to ask questions and offer ideas in the comments. Coming up on NC Impact.
And so there was a sense that we were keeping doors open and keeping workers working, and we were also providing an essential service to our community.
The COVID-19 pandemic put unprecedented strains on the nation's healthcare system.
The PPE was essential to making sure that healthcare workers could stay safe and continue to treat patients.
We'll take a look at a group of North Carolina companies that stepped up and are producing the vital tools to protect healthcare workers and citizens.
NC Impact is made possible by funding from Civic Federal Credit Union. NC Impact is a production of UNC TV in association with the University of North Carolina School of Government.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.